Welcome to another episode of the Let's Think About It podcast. I'm your host, Coach Mo, and I'm here with another outstanding, amazing guest, and her name is Dortha Hise. Dortha, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great. I'm super excited to be here. Just, yeah, feeling all the good vibes today.
That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. Before we jump into conversation, though, one of the things that I ask my guests is, where are you checking in from?
I am in Folsom, California, not too far from you.
Nice. Born and raised in the Sacramento area, or
It's a hodgepodge around the country, actually. I was born in Stockton and grew up in San Diego and then moved to Chicago for college. And when I moved away, my parents decided that Las Vegas would become home. And so that's actually where I spent a few years before I moved back here, which is I came back to this area by way of meeting my husband, who was working remotely in Las Vegas, and that's where we met. So that's how I ended up.
nice,
Yeah.
nice, nice. So tell my audience who you are, what you do, and let's just run with it from there.
Sure. My name is Dortha Hise, which you've already shared, and my company is Summit to Your Success. It's a full service coaching, consulting, and implementation company specializing in helping entrepreneurs, in particular high achieving, busy entrepreneurs, reclaim time in their day, week, month from all of the things that they should not be spending their time on, which I know you and I have had lots of conversation around this. Um, in helping them find and identify things that they can automate and delegate, and really focusing on that delegation piece with it being effective and not micromanaging, not hovercraft, all of that kind of stuff, and having good, clear communication, all of those kinds of things, just really helping impart that to them from a standpoint of just being more effective in their business and showing up more. It carries over into their personal life as well.
Sounds like you bring tremendous value to entrepreneurs. How did you evolve into the space and helping business owners or entrepreneurs?
Yeah, my first client was I was her research assistant, and which was a very natural transition from my previous world of being a paralegal. And she would come to me and ask me if I would be willing to learn something, and we be willing to learn something and be willing to learn something. And I was always a yes because I'm a lifelong learner and I'm always up for a challenge, up to learn new things. And so it just morphed into I learned how to read and write HTML code. And then I started helping with project management, where I was getting involved in coordinating 30 authors for multi-book projects. And then there would be interviews for telesummits that would go with that, and then all the back end pieces. So it just got to be like bigger and bigger. And as I grew into those pieces, I really started to just like own that like tech space in the entrepreneurial world. And I think I think anyway, some of the sweet spot around the delegation piece really came for me when, out of my own personal tragedy, there was a 2 year period where I lost 28 people. And when I was a kid, I experienced being abandoned 3 times by the time I was 5. And those two things combined really came into the forefront for me to really understand and know how to be able to build an effective support team, but also actually utilize them. So it's one thing to have somebody on the staff, be paying them, and not actually utilizing them, but to actually tap into their gifts, their skills, know how to ask for support. That's another one that's a really big
Mhm.
piece. All of those kinds of things came into more clarity and more focus for me about a decade ago, actually.
Okay. Okay. Because I was going to ask you, how long have you been doing this?
Oh, I've been doing it for 20 years.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So your niche, though, has really evolved into helping entrepreneurs like understand delegation and basically just get their time back. Is that kind of what I'm hearing?
Yeah, oftentimes when a client comes to me, by the time they come to me, they're at the end of a frayed rope and they're trying to hold on to it because they have really been spinning their wheels and just doing things that aren't just because they can do it doesn't mean they ought to be
Mhm.
doing it.
Right, right,
And
right.
that's where they're at. So they're like, okay, something has to change, something's got to give. And that's usually that first conversation we have. So it when I come in, I generally am taking a look at their existing systems to see where we can start picking up things to either get an automation in place or, okay, this isn't your best use of time. You spend 3 hours writing an email to send to your newsletter list. That's not the best use of your time. Let's offload that, free up those 3 hours, and you can start making those income producing hours again.
One of the things that I heard you mention really early on was, and it's still resonating with me, help entrepreneurs get their time back.
Hmm.
And then you mentioned delegation. First, I'm gonna go here with you. Why do you think, through your experience, that entrepreneurs struggle with delegation?
I think this really speaks to that conversation we had a little while back around that control piece. I think when we get into entrepreneurship, we're like, oh, yeah, I'm the boss of all the things, and I have to be in control of all the things and know how everything works and how to do everything. And that might be true when you first get started, and maybe it doesn't have to be true. But it becomes about a thing where they're like, okay, I'm just going to hoard it all in and I can't
Right.
offload it. I'm just, if I give it out, I look weak. I'm not in control of my business. And it's actually quite the opposite because once you have started releasing some of those things to a team, it frees you up to be in your zone of genius and it lets them be in theirs. And so then it becomes this beautiful dance of things getting done, things being efficient, you having more time, you getting to create new products, new offers, new write a book. I don't know. It's different for everybody.
I hear you, and you're right. We had this conversation, but I want my audience to hear your viewpoint on this because, like you said, they're used to doing everything themselves, and now they have a team, and the fear of letting go certain tasks really bottles them down a little bit. And
Hmm.
so now they're taking on more and more because of the fear to let go of certain projects or certain things that they've like really built and it became their baby, right?
Yeah.
And now they have to let it go. And you're working as a consultant, coaching these individuals. What is that approach to help them shift that mindset from not letting go to be able to release and get to attain their full potential?
I think it's touching on some mindset work because they've been so attuned to I have to do this all, I have to keep hold of it. It's my business, it's my baby. I don't want to give it up because you might not do it quite right. You might not do it like I do. There are 20 million other ways that we can do things, and as long as the thing gets done. So there's a piece around that, right? You have to have that conversation. And it's also about one of the ways that I started looking at asking for help and support was looking at it as part of my self-care. And when I did that, it made a huge shift in my outlook. It made a huge shift in the conversations I was having with my team, with other people in my support system. So my husband is part of that support network. And so like conversations became different. I'm not saying I delegate to my husband, by the way. That's not what I'm saying. But it when I need help and I need to ask for support, it helps when I'm clear about what I need so that I can articulate properly to say, hey, when you did this, I understand how you did it and I understand why you did it this way. However, I'm wondering if we could have a conversation about maybe doing something a little different around that. It can be a wide variety of conversations around something like that, but I do find that there is that mindset piece that does have to happen because it is a shift. And for somebody, especially if they're coming in as having formerly been in corporate, I know some entrepreneurs really struggle with that thought of, I can't delegate because I'm not a manager. And maybe whatever company or corporation they have come from, that wasn't an environment where they were fostering everybody should be delegating. It can be
Right.
a team and collaborative thing. And I think we talked about this too, where you don't have to be the smartest person in the room or on the team. It's okay to empower your team to learn more, to run with things, and then just fill you in, touch base with you on stuff. But you don't have to know all the intricacies about how something works or how a process is created or how that thing got in place. It doesn't have to be that granular and it doesn't have to be that much minutia.
And that goes back to like how important, in my opinion, coaching is and being
Hmm.
able to understand that skill. And the biggest skill about being a coach, and anybody can be a coach, by the way. You
Yeah.
don't have to get certifications and all that. It's just coaching is about key skills, right? active listening, acknowledging, validating, and asking open-ended questions. And I'm going to just go to asking open-ended questions. Anybody can ask open-ended questions, right? And
Yeah.
so what we see in the environment, in any environment, when you're talking about entrepreneurship, when you're talking about corporate, nonprofits, you have leaders, decision makers,
Hmm.
and that fear arrives, right?
Yep.
Because they may mess up this task, this assignment, and that's going to reflect back on me. And I can't allow that to happen. So let me get in and do it myself, or
Yep.
let me physically show you how to do it and do it, right? But the problem with that, which is great, but it's a one viewpoint in how you can only support a person. And
Hmm.
most leaders, right, they show up with just that one viewpoint of this is how they have to be supported. I got to tell them what to do. I got to get in there and do it for them if it's wrong, da 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 da. And just
Yep.
imagine when you have 10, 15, 20 people on a team, right? You're carrying just more weight showing up with that type of mindset.
Hmm.
And what I work with clients and what I teach them is the power of accountability and asking open-ended questions, right? And
Yeah.
when you have the power and the skill to ask open-ended questions, right, you can guide the conversation to where you want it to go, right?
Mm.
Obviously, it takes practice doing that, but the example of doing that is I want you to fulfill this task, but I'm afraid that if I give it to you, you're going to mess it up. Okay. So my a coaching approach would be, how do you see the outcome of this assignment that I'm going to provide to you? What's your envision of it? I have my vision,
Hmm.
but I just want to get a little bit more clarity of how do you see this thing play out? And then they
Hmm.
share. And if it's something that's not in alignment with what my expectations is, I would ask them, what are some other alternatives and ways that you can approach this assignment?
Hmm.
Give me a couple of them.
Hmm.
And that's where the ideas really start to come. And then
Yeah.
you're thinking as a leader, wow, I didn't even think of that approach. Because when I'm asking those questions, I'm thinking of it from the standpoint of my way of
Right.
doing it. And if
Yeah.
they're in alignment with my way, but if I'm asking for alternatives and how they can approach this potential task, now there's opportunity, empowerment for them to generate alternative ways and how they can approach it, in which there might be ways in which I never thought of.
Hmm.
And then that becomes the win.
Hmm.
What are your thoughts about that?
I think that's really powerful for a lot of reasons. One is it's sharing the load, right? It's that two-way street of communication. I like that you mentioned the word expectation because I think oftentimes when something is delegated, there's like this secret expectation that is never voiced.
Right,
And it's, okay, I want it this way, but I'm not going to tell you that. I'm just going to hope you stumble upon it. And then you get ticked off when it doesn't come back to you the right way. And I think that's where it comes down to that clear communication piece. But I think creating that two-way street of open-ended questions is brilliant. And I also think having expectations are huge. I that's a big one for me when I first start working with a client. Like I love to have that dynamic of, hey, I'm a over asker, right? Like I like to ask lots of questions to make sure that I understand I'm fulfilling what you want. So if that bothers you, I would like to know so that we can curb around what that's going to look like. Otherwise, you're going to get really frustrated with me in the first week that we
right,
work
right,
together.
right.
So I like to set some of those types of expectations. And I think what you described also creates an accountability situation on both sides, right? The person is willing to give it to the other person, and the person receiving it is taking ownership and accountability for what they are going to create. Because not only have they said, oh, hey, there's this option A, and the person comes back with, well, what are some other ideas? And then they come up with B, C, and D. And then now it becomes this collaborative work that is a living, breathing thing that now, 6 months from now, when there's another project that's similar to this, hey, when we talked about this a while back, we had these other options on the table. Why don't we revisit one of those other suggestions that you made and let's try implementing one of those? It creates so much, I don't even know the word. It's like a really beautiful container.
Synergy.
Yeah,
Synergy.
yeah, synergy. That's a great way to put it. Hmm.
And then the other piece of it is active listening,
Yeah,
right?
it's huge.
And I'm giving you the task, but I'm not listening. I'm just delegating because I need to get this off of my plate
Check a box.
just to check the box.
Yep.
And active listening is so much more than just listening to what the person says. It's more so being able to see the unseen. What I mean by that is body language.
Mm.
I'm running off this task I need you to do. You look confused. But as the messenger, I don't catch it.
Right.
Just get the task done. But then
Hmm.
on the receiver side, there's a fear that I can't tell my supervisor I don't understand because they're going to think less of me, particularly, especially if you're a new employee.
Yeah, huge, huge.
And it widens the communication gap.
It does. Yep.
What's been your experience in working with clients from that viewpoint?
I will say that I think Zoom has helped tremendously because now when we are face to face, I tend to wear my emotions on my face. So if I'm confused, I can't not have that confused look, and it will progress until you address it. So for me, I think it's been helpful from a standpoint of I they can see me, I can see them. Hey, I'm not following along. I will say, I think that the experience that I have had around active listening with some clients in the past has been the one component that I really love about active listening is that it's a judgment free. There's no,
Right.
there isn't, it's that sentiment of there's no dumb questions, right? It's the dumb question is the one you don't ask thing. And I always to lean into that childlike wonder. And I like to tell my clients that because when we're little, we're not afraid to ask questions. For some reason, somewhere along the way, when we got older, we become afraid to ask questions. And the dynamic in a client relationship for me is always, hey, I'm learning your processes. I have no idea how you do things in your business. And a prime example, right now, I'm ramping up with a client that I'm taking over her operations person's role. And there's so much I don't know. And I'm just asking questions left and right. And I will come back to the client and just say, hey, I realize I'm inundating you. If you need me to pause, just let me know. I have a lot of questions that I need to get answered because I want to make sure that I'm A, protecting your time, which is one of the things that she wants me to do for her. And then
Mhm.
two, making sure that you're not showing up in a bad way when I'm sending emails or messages on your behalf looking silly because I'm not speaking the vernacular of the client. All that to say, I think it goes to the culture of the company or the team or the wherever you're coming into. And as an outsider, that can be really challenging. And we've all been an outsider at one point or another. And I think that's the thing that a lot of clients forget, and maybe employers too, is that we've all been on that outside coming into the fold, trying to figure things out. And if whatever we can do to make that easier for somebody, I think it's on us to do that because it's just going to benefit everyone at the end and at the finish line.
That's an excellent point because one of the things that comes up for me just listening to your response is how fearful people are in asking questions. And I characterize that with the judgment that they carry. They're trying to project out the worst case that scenario
Yeah.
that may happen if I ask this question. And that worst case scenario makes them look like an idiot, a fool, stupid for
Yeah.
asking the question.
Mm.
So they hesitate
Yeah.
and they don't ask and they'll just wait for it to pan out the best way. But we can eliminate that exponentially by just asking the question. But we're showing up with certain judgments in our head of how we would be perceived if we do ask that question.
Yeah,
And that becomes the issue. And I see that a lot with new people, new business owners, just in their new role. And they have
yeah,
to get this information. And the fear really comes from a space because you don't have the knowledge. And
right.
without that knowledge, all you have is to assume and predict.
We know what
And
that happens
that's,
with
yeah.
that.
And that's when it gets scary as hell
Hmm.
because we're also relying on certain experiences to give us the insight. Some of those experiences wasn't the best experiences. And by nature, we rely on avoiding that experience that wasn't
Yeah,
favorable for us.
yeah. And our brain goes to extraordinary lengths to make sure of that. It's like innately wired into our brain.
And
Yeah,
just how I broke that down, right? Now spin it to the leader that needs to delegate this new project and they don't have the time to do it. And the
right.
fear and the judgment that they carry.
And then the expectation that they're feeling from their boss or
Exactly.
whomever they have to answer to. That then it becomes this vicious cycle, like you said, and it just creates a hellscape.
Because now they are fearful for managing up and asking clarifying questions. This
Yeah,
just came on my plate, so I need to make sure I get it right. I
yeah,
can't ask my boss because they're going to think I don't know what I'm doing. So I got to
yeah.
avoid that.
Then it's a
We'll
vicious
figure it out.
cycle. Yeah,
Yeah.
we'll just figure it out on the fly. And
Yeah.
that almost never happens. Sometimes it does, but let's be honest, it it's not pretty when it does.
And so for my listeners, how did you navigate situations like that early on? So where now you're a business owner, you have no problem asking questions and getting clarity. But what was that transformation for you and how you made that shift for yourself?
I think I may just have been fortunate or blindly lucky. I don't know, because I've just always been the kind of person who's, look, I don't know this thing and I'm going to ask. And I've been told like I have a very approachable manner about me. So like when people are working with me in a I've delegated it to them kind of way, they never have felt like they couldn't come to me with a question. I'm trying to think if there is, even when I was working in the legal field, I was very fortunate that my role was one of those pivotal roles in our firm, and I had the ear of all of the big attorneys. So it was always, what does Dortha need? And so not like I was the princess of the company, but I was the pivotal person, meaning I knew all the things and I had my little inner workings with all of the people, right? It's all about relationship building. And I think maybe that's what it comes down to is like building relationships,
Mhm.
having those conversations, getting to know somebody, and then understanding, okay, this person is very direct, right? They need something very succinct. They're going to need bullet points. Or other people are like, oh, now in the culture we're in now, where it's like, oh, send a gift, send a sticker. And that's a different type of communication style. So you learn along the way, and maybe this is just my adaptability. Maybe this is speaking to my adaptability, and maybe that is something that was just ingrained in me from my childhood. And just being willing to ask the questions because I wasn't afraid of looking silly or not knowing. And I've imparted that to my team as well. So, like, there's no question that's silly. Please ask. If you don't understand or you haven't ever used this system, I'm happy to jump on a Zoom with you and show you, share my screen and show you that kind of thing.
Another thought just registered again, listening to you, because this is a great conversation. I love talking about leadership, delegation, and things like that.
Yeah.
One thing you said was relationships and how important that is. How difficult is it to delegate when you don't have a good relationship?
It's pretty awful. I think it would probably be like being, married to or having a significant other that you weren't like 100% in, right? Like you were unhappy or like you were just not fully vested. I think when how am I trying to say this? Like when things are in flow, and maybe that's the word I'm looking for, they're in flow, you feel that like right now, like we have a presence with each other and there's like a synergy and a flow and I can feel that and I'm hoping that you can also feel that. I think that when somebody is shut off or they're too busy or they're inaccessible, that comes across in their personality. And I can give you an example of this because I actually recently did a Zoom call with somebody and she was so curt and so cold. It was and I like had a hard time connecting with her. I was just like, I literally couldn't find anything we had in common. And if I can't find one thing I have in common with you, what's my next question? And she's answering me in very short responses. So I'm like, for Pete's sake, I don't like, okay, why don't we hang up now? What's the point in being here? So I think trying to find some common ground with people is a way, if you do have to work with somebody who's difficult or has a sticky personality, or stickler, not sticky, stickler personality, it might be beneficial to start asking some, and I'm not saying super probing, but asking some questions, just trying to find out like, what do you have in common? My husband is brilliant at this. He actually, this is a really funny story. He got pulled over by a Nevada Highway Patrol ages ago on our way to visit my dad in Las Vegas, and he was trying to make small talk. And he said, he said, "You guys get much snow here?" And the C or the NHP guy was so annoyed, but you could tell he really did want to actually engage the conversation. But he was like, he got a little huffy, like, and he was like, "Yeah, we get a fair amount of snow." And it was just this really funny thing because it really broke the ice. And I don't know how my husband does that, but he has a gift of being able to just ask a question like that, and it can open up who knows what. And not like we
And that
became
goes
friends with the
back
cop or
to
anything, but
exactly, and that goes back to what I said. If we implement asking open-ended questions,
yeah,
which is a coaching skill,
yeah.
and it really just takes practice. It takes repetition, asking open-ended questions. Someone that's cold, like that experience you just shared, right? What if you had to work with this person or a team member, right?
Yeah.
How do you approach at that point?
Yeah.
So I help clients think, what's the win? What's one question that you can ask to create a win for
Mm,
everybody?
hmm.
And how do you break the ice? How do you gain understanding or seek understanding to why a person is so cold?
Yeah.
Because you don't know, right?
It's true. Yep.
You don't know. And one of the other things that I love sharing this is because I remember I took a Franklin Covey course, Seven Habits of Effective People.
Hmm.
And one of the things they talk about is emotional bank account. How are you contributing to a person's emotional bank account?
Yep.
How much, how many deposits are you making?
Yep.
And when you have an abundance of deposits into someone's emotional bank account, it's so much easier to withdraw. And the
Yeah.
withdrawals are the delegation of tasks that you need to get done that they may not really enjoy to do it. But
Yep.
because your bank account is full of these deposits, the withdrawal doesn't hurt you.
Yeah.
But it make emotional bank account is withdrawn, and then you try to
Overdrawn.
ask or
Yeah.
delegate, that's
Yeah.
where the resistance come in.
Yep. Or your stuff gets put on the bottom of the pile, right? Yeah, it's that's a great point. And I love that visual representation because I think too often people don't pay attention to the importance of what are you pouring into others, right? Like that piece that I like to practice, which is gratitude. I start that every morning. Like in my journal, I write 5 things that I'm grateful for that morning. And that helps me to show up in that space like you're talking about so that I'm not just leading in with, oh, hey, Mo, I need you to do this for me. Great. Okay. Yeah, okay. I'm doing great. Thanks for asking. There's no, yeah,
Right.
it's all business. And so if I come in and I'm like, hey, Mo, how are you? How is your wife? How are things? How's the practice doing? If I'm asking you a few
Yeah,
questions and how was your weekend? A simple question like, how was your weekend?
exactly.
Can really get you far.
But those examples of what you just shared right there, those are the deposits that I'm talking
Yeah.
about.
Yep. Exactly.
Simple deposits.
Yep. It doesn't
Instead of
take a
coming
bit.
in to the meeting blazing with tasks, give me the report of what was due and
Where are we?
right.
Yes. Yes, exactly.
So
That's a,
as
and
we as
oh,
we
sorry.
start to move towards the end of today's episode,
Mm.
share with my audience what should they know about you and your company.
I think I have a pretty unique approach in how I work with clients because I think partly because of the years of experience I have, I've worked with a large number and type of business owners. I've seen a lot of things done well, and I've seen a lot of things done not so well. And one of the things that I think if a client actually were to tap into, and not all my clients do, is that wealth of knowledge when I make a recommendation, it's not coming from off the cuff. It's actually formulated with, hey, I see that you're doing this, and here's what I've seen in the past. Perhaps you might want to try. You're right. I'm never coming in blazing hot. I'm coming in with suggestions. However, I have found that some clients are very resistant to that. And it's that role of I'm delegating this to you. I've already made up my mind. And it goes back to the piece you talked about where be open-minded in how this can be done and
Hmm.
give me some other options. I think that one of the things that my clients really enjoy about that experience is that I'm not just task oriented. I'm very big picture with them, strategy and planning, and then taking those plans and strategy and implementing it with my team or with their team. I also work with some people that I work with their teams. I think that the versatility and flexibility that I have built into my business over the years, and along with that expertise of 20 years in business and the number of people I've worked with, I think that's all how I am a little different. And also, I just recently heard from somebody that said, "Oh, you do coaching, consulting, and implementation." She said, "I've never heard of that in the space that you're in." She said, "It's amazing." So I'm sharing that because that was new to me that I didn't realize that was unique. So apparently that's unique.
Share with us a success story.
I recently worked with a woman who was married to her laptop. Not literally. She did have a family, and actually, she was trying to have a child and was having a lot of struggle in her relationship because she was always tied to her computer. So once we started getting some things in place for her to hand off, it became apparent to her what else she could start to hand off and what else she could hand off. And it became this, oh, like it started to snowball, which was great. And then with that freed up time, she was able to get into a regular yoga practice, which then helped her with her
Nice.
mindfulness and all the things that she wanted to have in her home life. And then she actually, I'm not taking credit for the pregnancy part, but she did get pregnant and they do have a family now. I do, though, contribute my helping her to find the time to be able to hand all those things off and not be spending her time needlessly on activities that weren't in her genius zone so that she could then take up a yoga practice, which she had always wanted to do. And then the other wins were that she wasn't taking her laptop on family vacations. And that was huge for her, huge for a lot of
That's
clients.
great. That's
Hmm.
awesome. I would assume that she feels a lot lighter too.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Literally a lot like maybe not with the baby, but yeah.
Who are your clients? What does that group look like?
They're high achieving women, generally entrepreneur, and they are tired of doing it themselves. They know that they're at that threshold in their business. They're ready to up level or they have up leveled recently and now they're like, "Oh crap, like I it's about to get like really real. If I don't get some things in place, it's going to fall apart." And maybe they've worked with a team and maybe they haven't. Maybe they've hired their sister or cousin or somebody, and that was maybe a disaster. So they have some reservations. And what I kind of pinpoint that to is it goes to trust. And so that's one of those pieces that we work on in that coaching scenario, because once that trust piece is addressed, a lot of other things can fall into place, like all the things that we've been talking about. And yeah, is there anything else about them? I think that's probably a pretty good
Okay, okay.
painting.
And lastly, how can you be found?
I'm on most of the socials. I won't say all. I used to say all the socials, but I'm not on all the socials now. So you can find me on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. You can message me on any of those platforms. I'd love to connect with you. I'd love to have a conversation like this with you. I could talk delegation and leadership and all of those things. Like Mo, you and I have talked a few hours at this conversation now
Yes,
over the time. And it's fascinating to me. And it's something that I'm always trying to learn and grow and expand in so I can show up better and be better for my clients and just be a better human in the world.
absolutely. I appreciate you, Dortha.
Thank
I really
you.
do. We go
Thank you.
way back too. We
We
go
do.
way back in our networking days. But I'm really happy that you carved off some time for me to be on the show. Any final thoughts or message you would like to leave before we sign off?
I think if you're feeling like you're on the fence about delegating right now, it will be one of the best decisions you've made in your business or in whatever it is that you're doing. So figure out the first best step to take and do it. And maybe it's having a conversation with somebody. I encourage you to do it because when you look back, you'll be like, why didn't I do it sooner?
Thank you. There you have
Yeah.
it, everyone. Miss Dortha Hise, I appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.